Hi everyone, my name is Bennett Blue, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys a little bit more about Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to go in depth about the history, the celebration itself, some traditions, and hopefully you guys are able to learn more about the holiday. So, in super simple terms, Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year. It is the birthday of the universe or the day that God created Adam and Eve. It takes place on the beginning of the month of Tishrei, which is also the seventh month of the Jewish calendar. It is a time of rejoicing and of serious introspection on a personal and communal level. It is a time to celebrate the completion of another year while also taking stock on your personal life. So, the 2 day holiday of Rosh Hashanah is the start of the Jewish year, like I mentioned. And it is a time when God reinvests himself in creation as we crown him as the ruler of the universe through prayer, through shofar blasts, and celebration. The 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are within the 10 days of repentance, which are the first 10 days of the month of Tishrei, which, like I mentioned, is the seventh month of the Jewish calendar. From the first day of Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, are known as the 10 days of repentance, or also known as the 10 days of awe. These days are days of mercy and forgiveness. They're dedicated to repentance and to examining one's conscience and specifically to amending one's ways. So, this year, for example, Rosh Hashanah was celebrated on September 25th through 27th, and we are now celebrating what is the current year, which is 5,783. Obviously, this is way different from the year that we are currently used to, which is 2022, obviously, almost 2023. But the Jewish calendar, hence the year being 5,783, is obviously very different from the traditional calendar that we're used to because it started much earlier than the traditional calendar that we use. So now that you have a basic understanding of what Rosh Hashanah is in a very simple term, I want to go through the history. So the picture that's on the screen right now, I want you guys to pay attention and just kind of form your own examination of what you think is going on in the picture. Because even though I'm going to be describing the history and the celebrations and the traditions that go on during Rosh Hashanah, these pictures may be able to teach you even more than what I'm saying based on what's going on in them. So, as I'm speaking and teaching you guys about the holiday, just pay attention to the pictures and try to form your own ideas and theories about what may be going on in the pictures. So, like I said, I'm going to be going into the history. So, even though Rosh Hashanah falls within the seventh month, later Jewish tradition decided to designate it in the beginning of the year. And although the origin of this holiday may have been adopted from the Babylonians, which obviously it was, the rabbis imbued it with the Jewish significance as the anniversary of the day that the world and the universe was created, or like I previously stated, the day that Adam and Eve were created, or of the day that humanity was created, which is just another way of saying Adam and Eve were created. So the next thing I want to talk about is celebrating Rosh Hashanah, which is very important to Jews all over the world. So, like I have briefly touched previously, Rosh Hashanah is a time during which Jews around the world atone for both their personal individual sins, but on Yom Kippur are communal sins that were committed over the course of the previous year. They do this because God is, in a way, closing the books on the Jewish people, and He inscribes our fates for the coming year during Rosh Hashanah. So God's rule over humanity and our need to serve God are stressed time and time again over the course of not only Rosh Hashanah, but throughout the 10 days of repentance, on Yom Kippur, and on most Jewish holidays. So this picture obviously is of a synagogue on Rosh Hashanah. Many people come and go to synagogue services. And at these synagogue services, the story of creation is retold, and people are reminded that God has decided and is deciding who will and who will not be written in the book of life for another year. So this is a time of self-examination in which people may raise questions about themselves. This this process on self-examination and repentance ends 10 days later on Yom Kippur, which is a day of total fasting and repentance. On Yom Kippur, when the fast is broken at sunset, people consider themselves to be completely cleansed and ready for the next year. So this is challah bread. Many of you guys probably recognize it because it's very popular throughout all Jews around the world and even people of all religions. Most of them know what challah bread is. So challah bread is eaten on Rosh Hashanah, and it's actually served a little bit differently. This is one of the main traditions on Rosh Hashanah is the challah bread. So you can see that in this picture, it was baked in a round shape, and that's symbolizing the eternal cycle of life. Usually, challah bread is formed in a braid shape where they overlap each other. But for Rosh Hashanah, like I said, to symbolize the eternal cycle of life, the challah bread is baked in a round shape. So traditionally, it is dipped in honey, which symbolizes the hope for a sweet new year. And the same is done with apples, which obviously are sweet by themselves, but dipped in honey, they are made even sweeter for the hopes of a sweet new year. So the challah bread the and the apples are two very well-known traditions, but one that is maybe not as well known is the blowing of the shofar, which is a Jewish instrument. And I'm going to play for you the sound right now, just so you can hear what it sounds like. It's a ram's horn. It's very similar to, I guess, a popular instrument would kind of be like a trumpet, but I'll just play the sound so you can hear it. So that was the shofar, like I said, and it is blown 100 times each day during Rosh Hashanah to encourage preparation for the new year. Some other things that happen during Rosh Hashanah is that work is often forbidden for Jews, and students in school probably don't go to school for Rosh Hashanah. It is often shut down. Um, Shana Tova is the standard greeting for Rosh Hashanah. In Hebrew, it translates to a good year. It is basically our way of saying Happy New Year. And I already touched on the round challah bread, but just to reiterate that one more time, just because it is probably the most well-known tradition about Rosh Hashanah. Round challah bread symbolizes the eternal circle of life. It's dipped in honey in the hopes of a sweet new year. And same goes for the apples. So on this slide, I want to touch about my personal experience with Rosh Hashanah. So I'm from Maui, Hawaii, and this is actually the synagogue that I used to go to when I was a kid. And you can tell that there's very few people, maybe 10 to 15 in this picture. And this is because in Maui there are very few Jews. So it's honestly pretty difficult to celebrate not only Rosh Hashanah but any Jewish holiday just because there's kind of that lack of not family but just like a group of similar people. Just because there's so little Jews, it's hard to kind of celebrate these traditions and holidays, especially Rosh Hashanah, because there's just simply not as many people to celebrate with. As a kid, like I said, I would go to the synagogue for the Rosh Hashanah service. And then later that night, we would have a traditional dinner with the challah bread and the honey and the apples. But To be completely honest, we may not have taken it as seriously as a typical Jew, maybe somewhere other than Maui would, just because, like I said, obviously there's not that many Jews in Maui, which makes it a lot harder to celebrate the traditions and holidays. But honestly, I am pretty thankful that I got to learn more about this holiday through doing this project because it taught me some important lessons that I didn't know about my own religion and what Rosh Hashanah actually is. So I'm just going to go over the lessons that I learned real quick. Obviously, Rosh Hashanah is way more than just the new year. If I were to hope that you guys take away one point from this presentation is that Rosh Hashanah is not just the beginning of a new year. It's a time of self-examination, traditions, celebration with your family, and it's a lot different than the typical American New Year celebration. And one of the most important things that I personally took away from this is the time of self-examination because I'm really big on that kind of thing, self-examination, making yourself better, reflecting on on your past and what you can improve. And I honestly didn't know that Rosh Hashanah was a time in which Jewish people take the time to reflect on their past year and kind of not teach themselves, but just look back on what they did and what they can maybe improve going into the next year. And this time of self-examination and reflection does not obviously have to be all bad or sinful as it says in the Bible, but um, you can honestly look at what you've done good in the past year and what you can carry on into the next year. And just basically to summarize that, it's just a great way to look at what you've done in the past year, what you can take with you into the next year, and what you can do in the next year to just become a better person. Here's a list of my sources, and thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you learned a little bit more about Rosh Hashanah. Thank you.